Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. This is Mo and
Ayomide.
Before I jinx it, Ayomide, your network really sounds very good today, but let's knock on wood, because you know it's a matter of time before your village people come for you. And I just ruined that moment. Yeah, I've spoken that into existence. But anyways, in the studio today, we have someone who I cannot wait to share her story, as you guys will soon come to find out. So here's a quick intro about her. She was born and raised in the beautiful country of Zambia, aka the Smile of Africa. She currently lives and works in Austin, Texas, with her husband, Chiluba Mulenga. And I actually met her in Austin about 5-7 years ago. And in Austin, they both enjoy serving their community through various initiatives. In all of her accomplishments, she's most proud of the opportunities to serve and uplift the human circle. She's a public speaker on various platforms and events, including keynote speaker at charity fundraisers, church ministry, community youth programs, and for several years, she has served on the alumni bootcamp panel for first-year MBA students. She recently became an author, guys, publishing her first book called Audacious Destiny, an inspirational spiritual memoir of a journey of resilience and faith. And special thanks to Naika Mangoli for urging me to, bring this individual on the podcast. So without further ado, please join us in welcoming Grace Mulenga to the podcast. Hi, Grace.
Hello, Tolani. Should I say Dr. Tolani?
Oh, please. That came from nowhere. Like, whoa, no.
I know, right? Hey, give honor.
Hi, Grace.
Hello, Tolani.
Hi, Grace.
Hello, Ayomide. Thank you so much for having me. It is a great honor to be on the podcast.
Thank you for coming.
So good to meet you.
Yeah. And you're like the third Zambian I'm bringing on the podcast. There's Mulongo Muchelemba, Chulu, but there's just this commonality with you guys. You're always so pleasant, and you smile a lot. So I guess that's what they call you guys, Smile of Africa. I've been trying to make that joke for a while now. So sorry, I mean, you're about to say something.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. You just wiped it out of my brain.
This is what happens old age. Sorry, I'll consider your age next time I'm talking. Always give you.
No, just my brain. That attempt at your joke just reset my brain. Is all. Like,
whatever. So, Grace, please don't mind us. This is, we can't choose our friends, and this is the person I choose as my friend. You can always tell a lot about a person, my kind of friend you choose, right?
Did you really get to choose though?
Oh yeah. Trust me, So Grace, we usually start the podcast by trying to get to know just how you grew up, and from Zambia to Austin. Please pray tell us, how did that happen, and what was life like, especially for those who have no idea or still think Africa is like one country. Let's try and bust that bubble a little bit.
Right. Oh yeah. So let's go down a little bit geography lens. So Zambia is in South Central Africa, and it's an independent country, nation. You can look it out, but it's the Smile of Africa. We like to smile a lot. So Zambia is pretty tropical, actually. And Tolani, you're from Nigeria. So some people have asked me, are you? Because I guess, Nigeria is Nigeria is big. Everybody knows about Nigeria. So when they hear Africa, they think you're from Nigeria. So the first question people ask me, they'll ask me this so many times. Are you close to Nigeria? I said, no, actually Nigeria is on the west coast, and we're north, south. So it's totally two different places. You have to take a plane. You can't even swim to go to Nigeria.
Don't try it. What people think. We don't swim across,
right?
Let me tell you why this is extra funny to me. Is something I often say to people, especially my white friends, is that it feels to me like Nigeria is like the US of Africa. because the way the world sees the US, loud, brash, ambitious, aggressive, dramatic is how I feel like other Africans in Nigeria. And now you've added one more thing to that list, which is everybody else in North America is like, yeah, America is not the US. America is the whole of North America. So Canada and Central America and everything. And like, that's literally what you're saying about Nigeria. Like, Nigeria has become Africa, the same way the US has become America.
Right?
And it kind of reminds me of how my Korean friends say,
I feel sad.
They always think they're Chinese. They're Chinese, are you from China? It's like, no, I'm Korean,
Right.
I'm so sorry that this is happening to you on behalf of,
I guess it does go both ways, right? Yeah. So, hey, I think I like how Ayomide put it. Nigeria is the America or the US of Africa, because everybody knows what Nigeria is. But so I was born and raised in Zambia. I have a lot of siblings. I was born in a family of 8 girls. I'm the number 8. Ooh. So my story is that, and I'll stick to it.
Wow.
I say, when my parents had me, they had Grace. They said, we've obtained Grace. We don't need any more. We don't need a son. We're good.
Wow.
8 girls. I think my father was like, let me try and have a boy. And then here we are. 8 girls. Love my siblings. So pretty much we had we didn't have much growing up, and I will share a little bit of how I grew up without giving away the book too much, because a lot of that is in the book. I give a pretty good description or synopsis of what life was like growing up in Zambia. But my story really is that, we had to be on our own at a very young age. And that's what inspired me to write a book. We had to start dreaming beyond what our environment looked like. So right after high school, I think I was in my gap year, I was doing some college training. I had an opportunity to come to the United States, and that was like back in 2006. So it's been almost 15 years since I've been here. Yeah, so most of my childhood, teenage years, high school were in Zambia, and then I came here for college.
I know Tolani probably has some questions to ask you about, your move to the US, which I think she's probably a better person to ask because, she's the only other person in this room right now who has made such a move. But I wanted to ask you a bit more about what you said earlier, which is something we ask everybody on this podcast who is, also African, but not Nigerian, is what's your honest view of Nigerians? Like, this is your chance to say publicly how you feel about.
And you will not be cancelled, we promise. Okay, we'll back you up.
And whatever you say,
we don't know already.
Whatever you say, is whatever you just feel free to answer as honestly as you wish, good or bad.
Right. When I think about Nigerians as persons, individuals, bold, loud, those 2 words come to mind. I'm sorry, don't cancel me.
No.
It's nothing we don't
lies.
Don't worry.
No lies
we know ourselves. We might have several afflictions, but lack of self-awareness is not one of them.
Oh my gosh, bold, loud, and just very well. I'll borrow one of my books, like audacious. Like Nigerians, whenever you meet a Nigerian, I don't think I've ever met a timid Nigerian. Seriously, I don't think I've ever met a timid Nigerian. Even the quiet ones just have this boldness about them. So, and the loud part, of course, like, hey, my sister, how you there be? Hey, what? Hey, what you see like?
I'm curious. Do you listen to Nigerian music or watch Nigerian films as well?
Yeah, do you do it?
Like, what's your level of interaction with Nigerian culture?
Yes, I'm curious to know that too. Yeah. Do you listen to our songs and watch our movies?
Yes, we listen to Nigerian music. I mean, in my teenage years, that's what we watched a lot of Nigerian movies. That was the first introduction to cable TV. Even though we didn't have it, our neighbors had it. But Africa Magic was one of the first things we were exposed to. And it was Africa Magic was just Nigerian movies. It's now that you have like
I never thought about it until you said that Africa Magic was not.
No, it was.
Again, it's like the US, right? It's like when the US is World Series and it's literally just the US playing.
Yeah. After the point, they even had Yoruba, they had Igbo, they had Hausa, even within African DSTV. But sorry, I don't know. Maybe because we're like the most populous Black nation, like our numbers. Maybe strengthen numbers, but you're right. Like it's nothing you haven't said before. We know we're very loud.
I think we need that reminder that like Africa is not Nigeria.
Nigeria,
we've all agreed that Africa is not a country, but low-key, I feel like Nigerians. We think Africa is Nigeria.
Exactly. It's not different from all those other non-Africans thinking that Africa is one continent. Because I think because of Nigerians, like even Nigerians probably think there's nothing else in the rest of the Africa. We make up the lion's share of it,
Yeah, and when they say,
to be fair,
"Can you
though,
make me some African food?" They mean Nigerian food.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't say something.
No, I was going to say that I think Nigerians have actually started more recently traveling out to other African countries, though.
African countries, yeah.
Because when we're growing up, it was always to like, US, UK, Canada,
yes,
Dubai later. But like now, we've started traveling to other African countries as well.
And I credit the internet for that, like exposing. Like today, heck, I saw the first underground, underground, below sea level hotel in Zanzibar. It's the first in Africa. Like you can see the coral reef in Zanzibar, and I'm like, whoa, I saw that on Instagram, and I'm putting that on my bucket list of places to go to. So, anyways, I guess to kind of ease us into that other question of so you moved to the US in your teens.
Yeah, when I was right after high school, so I was probably like 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry, by yourself?
By myself. My sister was here, so she helped me source out some opportunities. But yes, I got on that plane, and
if there was space, I would just pause now and prostrate for you. But I can't do without knocking my head on the mic.
I was old enough, but
still, it's a different continent, a different system.
It's true.
You were a kid.
Yeah. How did you survive?
How did I survive the trip?
Yeah. No, not the trip. Not the trip. Like, think of it like, not the trip. I'm not going to ask you how you came here. Like, did you, fly across the ocean or something? No. Think of it like, if you could go back in time and talk to that little Grace that was boarding, the plane to the US for the first time, and she's listening right now. What are some tips, of things to do and not to do to make sure you can thrive in this new environment you're just finding yourself in?
Oh. Be open-minded. Be open-minded to the culture that you're getting into. For me, it was a lot of excitement. Like I shared before that, there was a lot of motivation behind that. My sisters and I had to be on our own. And I can give you a little bit of that information. We had a sad upbringing, because we didn't have our parents around, and whenever people read Audacious Destiny, they will get to learn a little bit more about that. So when you don't have your parents around, and education is kind of your only way out. So for us, it was wherever that education took us, we were going. So there wasn't a lot of fear attached to that. It was just, of course, it was an excitement. You're going to America. But I came into this place with the mindset of, I've been given a rare opportunity and I'm going to make the best out of it. So I had a positive outlook. It didn't matter how cold it got. It didn't matter that I had a thick accent and people were not understanding what I was saying. All of those things were hiding behind the veil of determination. So I would just advise anybody embarking on this journey, regardless of what your background is, right? You may have grown up privileged or you have opportunities, but just receive it with an open mind because it is an opportunity. to be able to just, not just America, but to go into another culture and to do something different with your life.
Bravo. Like, Farida said exactly the same thing. Oh, Farida, for context, was one of the guests we had on the show from Burkina Faso, and she moved here in her teens, and she said exactly the same thing. She said, not in the same words, but that open-mindedness, that was one of the biggest factors she talked about. So thanks for reminding us of that, Grace.
Yeah, well,
I'm curious. When you speak of the open-mindedness, was that something that, I mean, I know you were young, and technically at that age, you don't really have a personality from a psychological point of view. I'm not saying you didn't. I'm just saying, like, psychologically, psychologically, there's this thing people say that actually that you can't have a personality disorder before 18. Technically, you can't be diagnosed with a personality disorder before 18.
Have they met me?
Because technically, you don't have a personality that could be disordered in the first place. Like, your personality is still being shaped.
I guess.
But I was going to say, in what ways? Because you talked about the open-mindedness, and that for me spurred another question of, in what ways do you think because the question let me start, because I'm jumping 2 steps. The question that popped into my mind was how much of that open-mindedness was there, right? Before you moved. But then I think more interesting question to me is, beyond even that, in what ways do you think the move has shaped your personality different from how it may have been if you had stayed in Zambia? And I know this is a hypothetical question in a sense, because obviously you don't know what would have happened. But to the extent that you're able to imagine, what do you think would have been different?
Okay, let's start with the first question. To what extent did I have that open-mindedness? There's a way that we were raised and we grew up, right? So there are those societal norms that we are accustomed to, how people do things or what respect looks like in this culture. So I was, first of all, like I mentioned, I was excited because if you've grown up poor and you've been given this opportunity, you're like, I'm going to take it, right? So there was an attitude of humility there as well, in terms of I'm going to take whatever, not just like accept anything that comes your way, but just say, okay, they might do things differently here, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to, like, one of the things that my sister taught me, and I do mention this in my book about keeping eye contact, right? She was prepping me. She was like, when you go for that visa interview and when you do this, they'll ask you this, you need to be confident. And in our culture, looking at somebody directly in their eyes, that's considered rude, right? So I had to make that adjustment, and I had to just train my mind to think, okay, this is a different culture. And in order for me to, if I'm going to succeed and survive, I need to accept and learn, be willing to learn. How is respect, like that eye contact thing? I had to just adapt to it. It was uncomfortable at first. And I'm like, why do I need to look at people, elders, directly in their eyes when I'm talking? But it was expected of me, and I was willing to do to go that route in terms of survival. And then Ayomide, you asked, how has my personality been shaped? And you're right, I do agree with you to a certain extent, because at that time, you're still learning who you are, where do you fit in this life, what kind of a person are you going to be. It shaped a lot of who I have become, in terms of my interactions, my viewpoints, and I developed this go-getter attitude, right? America is a land of opportunity, but then you have to put yourself out there. And coming from another culture, you have to learn how to interact with people. You have to learn how to source out information yourself. If you're looking for a job, you go on the internet, look for it, learn to talk to people, learn to network. So I became more. My sister used to say I was very soft-spoken initially when I first you need to project your voice. You're not speaking loud enough. And I said, but being loud is rude. You can't, So I learned to speak up and be more assertive, and just appreciate it. it shaped also my work ethic in so many different areas, because you're just so, when you come here, I came here as an international student, so you don't have a lot of time to play around, right? So you have to use your time wisely between classes and work and what you can and cannot do. So it's broad in terms of how it shaped my personality. But if I was back in Zambia, it's would have, could have, but I have an idea. I don't think I would have been as assertive or as resilient as I have become in my life, maybe because there was a fallback cushion, right? You're in your home country, but you're here, you're thinking, as an international student, if I fail my classes, they're going to deport me. So you take on a different mindset. You're like, hey, it's either you sink or you swim,
Oh, wow. I mean, I feel like you need like a whole series around just the nuggets you're dropping. My fear is that this short minute to have with you to like spend on the podcast is not going to be enough. It's certainly have to bring you back, maybe during a workshop for those that are transitioning. So I had 2 questions. I don't know how I'm even going to manage it, because I'm always very curious to see how people grew up. 7 sisters.
Yes.
Now, I don't have sisters, but I went to an all-girls boarding school for high school. I have 2 brothers, but I know having 7 sisters all at once in my space. How was it growing up? That's my first question. And I had a follow-up that is kind of like a little bit of a non-sequitur, but please tell us, how was life like with 7 sisters? And you being the last, you're at the bottom of the temple, African family.
I'm the last, so
yes.
I didn't have to do as many chores. They fought amongst themselves about that. I was the one that told on everybody, like, hey, mommy, this person did this.
Little snitch.
But there was a point where we all lived in one place together. And most of us really, that we all lived, it was still the majority. And I learned then to be tolerant. You share clothes, you share makeup, you share everything. And so when you wake up in the morning and you're looking for a favorite pair of shoes, if you don't find it in the next 5 minutes, somebody has worn it, get over it. So you just learn to get over it. You learn to negotiate. I think some of the best negotiating skills that I learned from my sisters, because you negotiate. You're like, okay, if you let me wear this brand new top that you just got, I know you love it, I'll do chores for you for the next 2 days or something like that. Your sisters are your fashion police. I think that if I dress well at all, it's because, my sisters were there. Sometimes you want to walk out of the house and they're like, what do you think you're wearing that?
Okay, I can definitely see the merits. Okay, I get it.
A lot of opinions. You have to have tough skin. You get.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of opinions around anything that you do, so you have to speak up.
So you found yourself in Texas. Was that the first port of entry, like into the US?
No. So when I came to the US, my sister that helped me come here, had helped me find school in DC. So I did my undergrad in Washington, DC. Oh my gosh, it was cold. I was like, what on earth? Jesus, I know we talked about being open-minded. I was like, okay.
I honestly thought you were going to say, oh my God, it was cool.
That's what I thought.
It was cold. Oh, I mean, imagine that was my first exposure to snow and like freezing temperatures. So, oh my goodness, it was cold. But like college life, I had a lot to learn there. I had a great and interesting college life in DC. What brought me to Texas was a job opportunity. And it started off as a contract, but 8 years later, I am still in Texas. And I love it.
So Austin, right? Austin, Texas?
Yes, I'm in Austin, Texas.
And are you able to tell us what line of work, like what's your career?
So I've been working in the credit union industry for since I left college, I started out as an intern with the credit union administration back in DC, and then I got on a contract job to come here. And then I got hired by a credit union. So I went from the regulating agency to the actual credit union.
So you help them stay away the bad guys coming for that. You need to do this and that. You need to like
it's interesting. Well, I don't know if my boss heard this, he would not have a problem with it, but he wasn't even there when I was he wasn't around when I was being hired. But I think that's the impression that the hiring managers had. They were like, oh, she's going to give us all the inside scoops. I didn't have a lot of inside scoops. I had some information.
Anyways, okay. So Texas, definitely a different climate in every sense of that word compared to DC. But it seems like DC was more like a threshing floor for you to like build all of your skills, and then Texas was where you feel like you're kind of, let me use that word, borrow that word, manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say are some of the opportunities and struggles as a Black immigrant female, in Austin, Texas?
Oh my goodness. Let's just start with DC, even before we get to Texas. Black immigrant, as an immigrant, just as an international student, it was difficult to get job opportunities. And I was just learning as I was looking for these job opportunities that I had quite a few barriers. I thought that my only barrier was the fact that I was an international student. Then I was like, oh no, I'm also a minority. And then I'm a woman. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So we have all of these things, barriers to get through. But DC, it wasn't easy, but you find ways to get through. You just have to be determined. You can get 1,000 no's, but all you need is that one yes, right? And you have to learn your space as well. So, you know how they say ignorance is bliss. Well, I don't believe ignorance is bliss. Because when you're aware of your environment, I went to a historically Black institution, and I think that environment helped me to realize some of the barriers that minority face, because I thought that I only had to deal with the fact that I was an international student, but being at a historically Black institution exposed me to a whole new world of things that I had to deal with in terms of finding opportunities. And they prepared me for that, because you can choose in life to be a victim and say, oh, woe is me. I'm a minority. I'm a woman of color trying to thrive in the financial services industry, and I'm an international student. Or you could say, well, I know what hindrances I have, and I'm going to work around them. So you know how to present yourself, and you don't let that work against you. Let that work for you. So that's been my experience in just like transitioning from there, even right now here in Austin, Texas.
Cool. I think that's a really important point that you mentioned, and I think that's something that's come up with a number of people we've interviewed, and I think for many of us coming from Africa, I kind of always don't like using the word Africa, but in this case it is Africa, right? I don't like using the word Africa, when it's like because you're not coming from Africa, you're coming from Zambia, but I'm thinking like all of us coming from Africa in general.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We tend to come in, especially going to the US in particular, tend to run up against that whole thing about the ways Black people in the US have been portrayed in American media, which we've absorbed without being aware of it, including some of the negative stereotypes about them. And then coming to realize, actually, a lot of those stereotypes, a lot of those portrayals were not by Black people, actually, and they were by other people about Black people, where Black people didn't get to necessarily have a say as much as they would like. And some of it has been negative. And then when you realize, actually, it's the same way they portray us, right? In the West. So of course, like suddenly just sort of clicks and you're like, I see what's going on here. It's just that whole thing of portraying the other as less, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then And I think it takes different people a different amount of time to sort of come to terms with it. And I think some people take a bit more time than others. So it's thanks for sharing like how that was like for you. I did want to ask though, so speaking as, in Nigeria right now, I don't know if this is something that's happening in Zambia, so I'd like your thoughts. In Nigeria right now, there's something called the Japa syndrome. The Japa is a Yoruba word, which is the part of Nigeria Tolani and I are from, for running away. But in Nigeria, as with many things, words from one group of people sort of spread across the country. And so it's basically used to describe the sort of almost like flights that's been happening more and more recently. It's always been happening, but it's increased recently with worsening economy, a lot of difficulties and all sorts of challenges, political stuff and all that. So I'm wondering if that's something that's happening in Zambia, that if you feel like you're seeing more and more people leave. For instance, for myself, where I train in psychiatry in Nigeria, and almost all the people I trained with are here in the UK. Which, when you think about it, makes me a little sad, because it's like, that's a lot of talents that we're just exporting out. And like, we were trained in Nigeria, so it's like the Nigeria trained us for the UK to enjoy, basically. So I'm wondering if you're seeing, and more you'll see more classmates and secondary school classmates and all those sorts of things. So I'm wondering if you're seeing that, but I'm also wondering if you're considering ever returning, one, or if things were perfect. Oh, well, I mean, there's no perfection, but basically what would need to change for you to seriously consider returning, if you would return, or would nothing, cause you to? So that's two questions for the price of one. But, you can respond to them as you feel like.
Okay, all right. That's you've brought up some really important subjects. Whereas I think what I'm hearing a lot of economic stability of different nations. What are the different motivations of people to migrate, right? And you mentioned talent. We have, I believe, not just Nigeria or Zambia, but most of Africa has a lot of talent. A lot of African people, like Africa is one of the most educated continents in all of the universe. We have a lot of educated people. So then the question is, why would all these talents leave? And it's sad, right? Why would all these talents leave where they are and come? Two aspects to that. When I was leaving, but like 15 years ago, things were certainly more different than they are right now. Of course, I was in my 20s. I didn't really care about what the rest of the society was doing, to be honest with you. I was like, hey, I have an opportunity, I'm going. But over the years, I've also been curious, right? Pose that question. What are the different motivations? And the number one motivation is opportunity, right? As much as we have we haven't had any civil wars in Zambia. So in terms of like the stability with peace and all that, that's all great. But in terms of opportunity, and as much as you get educated people and you have an influx of it's right now, I would even say like there's a saturation of education. People are so educated, but then there isn't a lot of opportunity. And that's why a lot of citizens would migrate and come to the United States. But there's a caveat to that. I have noticed some changes over the years, and I may speak, I think that it's not just with Zambia, but it's spreading across Africa as well. And it's a change of mindset in how we use our resources. In maybe my older sister's generation, the only way was to let's get out, let's go in that's what we were presented, right? Let's go and get an opportunity somewhere else. But I've seen like in the last couple of years how every time I visit Zambia, I'm so impressed about, the opportunities people are creating for themselves. There is there is this entrepreneur mindset that has come upon a lot of Africans, and that's great. And I think we're moving in a really good direction, because I think the millennials and the new generation are realizing, well, you know what? I don't really have to go to the US to make it. I can actually make it. I can create jobs and I can create opportunities. So it's changed quite a lot. You have people our age, opening their own firms and their own companies. It never used to be like that a long time ago. It's like you have to go to London or Canada to make it. So the mindset has changed, and I think there is hope. We have a long way to go in terms of creating opportunities for the larger society. Like we don't want all the doctors to leave, right? So if we don't want the doctors to leave, we have to create hospitals. But there is hope, because there's a shift in mindset where people are like, you know what, we can do this. We got this as Africans. And I'm seeing that change. Like fashion designing. Yeah. Before they used to say, oh, you're going to school, you're going to be a tailor, huh? But now you find like these young fashion designers, they have fashion shows in Zambia. And I see that with Nigerians as well. Zambians are making their own movies and just progressive altogether. So there is hope. Would I go back? Yes, it's home. I would go back. Do I have concerns about going back? Of course. I've lived here for so many years, and so assimilating just going back into society. But in terms of opportunities, yeah, I think I could make it if I went back. It's not like it used to be. And I hope I've answered your question.
Amazingly. Thank you very much.
Oh, Grace.
Thank you. That's really thoughtful. Thank you. Sorry.
Yes. And I just love how you broke it down. Like that push and pull factors that we see when we talk about brain drain. And I think the commonality, pick a country in Africa.
I mean, she's clearly thought about this.
Yeah. Plus, pick a country in Africa. You can always tell the outcome will depend on the kind of governments we have. And I'll just say historically, we've not had really very strong leaders, to kind of ensure that talents are being retained. And Nigeria being the giant of Africa, and I want to just say this, and I say this, with humility, of course, given that I'm Nigerian and humility is not one of our strongest strengths, is that the rest of Africa kind of looks up to us in certain areas. And it's so saddening that we're not doing it well. We keep just losing talents. And I guess you're right. Like, opportunities is the one thing you can always guarantee Africans to do is they'll take the opportunity if given the chance to. Yeah. So you recently got married, congratulations.
Thank you.
I spied on your Instagram a little bit, did a little bit of stalking, which I, usually do for my best. Congratulations. And
congrats.
Thank you.
It's really recent, right?
Yes. Like 2 months ago. Mm-hmm.
Wow, this is like a glowing bride. And by the way, guys, you might not be able to see her, but she's so beautiful. I've been wanting to say that since. Smile, and then the beauty is also shining through. So, I guess my question for you will be the book. Let's go back to your book. Audacious, Destiny, right? It's about your journey of faith and story that is inspirational from your own standpoint. Can you, without giving too much away, I mean, for those that might be interested to know, it's written in English, it's available on Amazon, so you don't have any excuse. There's a Kindle part of it too, and there's a paperback, and it's about 170 pages long. You can knock that out in an hour or two. Without, giving away the keys to the kingdom, Grace, what's the catch for those that might be considering buying the book? Why should they buy that book, and what's in it for them or for us?
Oh, what's in it? I feel like Audacious Destiny is one of those stories that no matter who you are, at what stage, you'll find yourself in the story. Because, like I said in the subtitle, it's a journey, right? And in this journey, like I've learned it, I uncover a lot of principles, life principles, things about humility and not giving up. And I think the main message is, it doesn't really matter what you're able to see with your physical eyes right now, because a lot of what I experienced in my life is not things that I saw. sometimes we're discouraged by where we are, and like, I've never seen anybody in my family drive a nice car, or I've never seen anybody wear nice shoes, or I've never seen or known anybody who's had a PhD. It doesn't matter. And a lot of also what I uncover is just like coincidences are not coincidences, that we should just have the faith to go through life. And for me, I take it from a religious point of view, faith in God, obviously, but you need to trust the process, and you're not going to have the answers immediately to everything. Because we look at successful people and we're like, oh man, I wonder how Dr. Talani got there. She must have done this. You have a story to tell, right? And sometimes when people look at that, it can be a place of intimidation. Like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can accomplish that. But what I learned through my journey and what people can expect from Audacious Destiny is seeing how the little seemingly small or irrelevant, what you may think are irrelevant pieces of your life, they are leading up to something bigger. Being at the right place in the right time, applying yourself, and just having the audacity to dream beyond what you can see. Whoever you might be, it doesn't matter who you are. You will find yourself in the story.
I think for me, it's just to find out what life was like growing up, with 7 sisters and all of the nuggets. I think that would be my curiosity, because I'm always very interested in siblings, relationships, and all of that. Especially coming from the perspective of the last born, like you, in an African household. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. Now a lot of instruction, like.
And you're doing a question, even though last borns are known for running their mouth, the firstborn will probably put them in place.
Right. Yes. The firstborn is usually the serious one, running the household. Yeah, it was interesting. It was loud. Definitely. I feel sorry for my parents. But a lot of, I think, teamwork too. We don't realize how much of our childhood shapes who we are, how we interact with people. So I've seen that translate into so many areas of my life, just being tolerant of people and learning to function in any kind of environment. But I can see that I learned that from my household, because it just wasn't about you. We were hand-me-downs, so you get to say thank you instead of, what is this piece of junk?
Okay. Thank you.
I was going to. So I know you've talked about the book, but I understand that you've also been involved in a few other things. One of the things we like to do with, obviously, like for people who come here, because you come and you spend so much of your time with us, but we'd also like for you to have a chance to share what you're doing as well as also let people know how they can get involved. So if you would talk a bit about some of your initiatives.
Mm-hmm. Great. Awesome. I love to give back. A lot of the motivation for me to get involved in anything that I'm getting involved in, it's just that I have this passion to pass on the lessons and the principles that I've learned. And throughout my journey, even just surviving here in the United States, I came to learn that the opportunities that I encountered that took me to the next level would not have been possible if somebody had not been in that path of the opportunity. Somebody passed on that information. Somebody took time to teach me some interviewing skills. Somebody took the time to teach me about finances, about life. And that's always my mindset. When I'm speaking, is to empower people, whatever it is that they need. People have different needs, right? So like at my church, I'm involved with the youth. I'm a youth leader there. Small group of teenagers. I teach Bible class and we do some activities here and there. I try to meet them where they are. They say experience is the best teacher, right? And so with everything that I've gone through, I try to impart those principles. I want to be there for people in any way that I can. If they need knowledge, they need guidance. I know like a few years ago, some of the teenagers from my church were applying to college, right? And like I was like, let's go through the interview process. And one of them asked me like, Grace, how do you know so much about like building confidence? And I was like, yeah, because I was timid at one point, and I don't want you to have to struggle through that. So a lot of what I share is just from my experience. Like, what did I learn that I can impart on this young person that they don't have to? If one of them says, well, you know, we live with so many people in my house. I rarely have time to do homework. I was telling my book to a lot of the people before I even decided to read it. I was like, let me share a little story with you. You know, I didn't really have a study space either, you know, so I don't think I woke up one day and said, let me start doing these initiatives. It's just happened organically in me wanting to share and impart what it is that I've learned throughout my journey. So I do youth programs at church and wherever it is that I'm needed. I'm involved with a charity organization here in Central Texas. It's called Catholic Charities. And they hosted my first book signing last Thursday. They had an annual meeting there with a lot of their supporters. So that's another mission that, you know, Catholic Charities is one of those places that you don't have to be Catholic. I knew nothing about being Catholic when I went there, but they helped me. They helped me when I was in college. That's how I got to know about them. And so I decided to go back and give back and get involved in whichever way. Another thing that I do, you know, wherever I'm needed at my my alma mater, the MBA program, Texas State University, go on a boot camp. Again, it's just sharing my experiences, you know. Hey, how did I survive through grad school? And if somebody says, well, I have 3 kids and I can't do this MBA and this and that, I was like, well, you know, I didn't have kids in grad school, but I know a little something about surviving, okay? When you can't work, but you need to pay tuition, find a way to do it morally. So, one other thing that am I talking too much? You can stop me. I always ask
we have no desire to, like, just keep going. Like, you're just making so much sense.
Oh, okay. All right. Like I said, a lot of
seriously, you make us look good. Like, you make us look good as podcasters. So go for it.
So the initiatives, like I mentioned, they're not coined as such. They come just from a desire to help people, impart them with knowledge. And one of those things that I started doing in 2020, I was trying to entertain the kids at my church with financial literacy, right? I was like, oh, let me find something fun for them to do. So I created these cartoon characters and we started, let's talk about money behaviors, because those are the things that helped me survive, right? I had to be disciplined financially. That's a topic for a whole another day, but I had to live within my means. And in order for you to survive as an immigrant, as an international student, you can't go, I didn't know what MAC powder was until I graduated college. Like, I knew of it, but I was like, that's too expensive. I can't put that on my face. I need to buy some books. So I started doing this financial literacy. Just to say that for a second,
the way you said that sounded like you wanted to put the books on your face. I'm just saying.
No, I wasn't going to put that money on my face. I was going to put it in my books. But that's a funny point. So I started doing financial literacy just to kind of share some principles that I've learned about money management behaviors. And it started out as something fun to do in the pandemic. You know, kids were bored out of their head with Zoom classes. I was like, let's do something different. And more churches started requesting that financial literacy. I'm actually teaching a financial literacy session tomorrow for a church out, I think, in Dallas. I may be wrong, but one of those places. And I've just continued doing that. I make myself available. Whatever the society needs. Can I uplift them? I'm there.
I'm very intrigued to hear that you are into youth work, because That's something I've
old
always...
man here. Yeah. I was just,
sorry, can you hear something?
Supporting. I immediately into youth work, and he was just beaming with. I don't know if you could see his eyes light up when you were talking about your youth work. Yeah.
But I mean, just because I've always loved youth work, and I've always found it very rewarding and fulfilling. Although it's also very much a sort of long-term investment, which I'm sure you'll appreciate. And there's something else I've always found about youth work is there's never enough people. I don't know how it is in your church, but I feel like in the different places I've been to, there's never enough people. It's not like, I don't know, something like the choir, for instance, or band that always has like so many people, or like the meet and greets, or it just feels like youth work just never has enough people, and you need a lot of people. But I was just wondering, for someone who clearly you're passionate about youth work, what would you say has been your most sort of rewarding moment, and what would you say has been your most sort of foot in your mouth moment, if that you can share for the latter? Well, for both actually, because it's possible that the rewarding one is also something that's maybe super sensitive.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Great questions, both of them. And I am a very open and transparent person, right? So you can expect honest answers. So when you talk about food in my mouth, I've had plenty of those. The way I got into youth work, I didn't even realize that I was that passionate about it. And maybe that's something that a person out there who has thought about it can just keep that in the back of their mind. Sometimes there are those, they say there's leaders that are born and leaders that are created, right? And for some of us, we need to be nurtured to get into that place. I didn't even know that I was that passionate, but somebody kind of pushed me into it. And one of my really good friends here in Austin, Texas, her name is Elizabeth Avila. Her and her husband were doing youth work, and they were great at it. I was just going there to support them. They were teaching Bible class, and I would show up late. Okay, out there, I was the one that was like, they were like, "Oh, you just need to come and observe what's going on." And then I would bring donuts. That was my thing. So I was the lady that brought donuts. But my friend Elizabeth was transitioning to grad school, and she said, "Hey, I need help." I'm like, teenagers, that sounds scary, But she said, "No, you're so good at them and this and that." So I saw how they helped transform me, because I didn't realize that I didn't see myself as this youth motivational thing, person. But the more I shared my experiences with them and we connected, I started to learn that, there is something I can pour into them. And so that passion was ignited. I just wanted to put that out there. I wasn't born with that. I don't think it was something that I knew always that I wanted to do that. It was something that was ignited in me, poured into them. And it instilled a lot of discipline in my life as well, because I had to show up at a certain time. I had to lead by example, and I couldn't just show up with donuts, but I had to keep my word. If I told them to come on time, I had to be on time as well. So they've definitely poured into my life as well. And one of the most rewarding, it's just not moment, but moments, is when they're graduating high school, and one of them did write me a card and said, "You've taught me a lot about leadership, about life, and I didn't even know that I was imparting those." And so everybody, human beings learn by watching, right? So it encouraged me to be a better person. And just think, it's teenagers. Whenever we're having Bible class or we're doing activities and I want them to participate, they will roll your eyes at you, okay? They would do that. That's a given. Like, "Oh my gosh, Grace, why do we need to do this again? Don't put me in the spotlight. I don't want to give no speech. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to give a prayer." And then later on to hear them say, "Thank you for making me do all of that." To me, that's like very rewarding. Where I've shot myself in the foot. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I said those are the moments you live for.
Yes, those are the moments
that make everything worth it.
Realize, that I'm actually doing something important, because I didn't. I was constantly busy. I was telling my friend, when are you coming back? She never came back, by the way. She just handed it over. That's how she left.
The good old switcheroo. Sorry, you're going to say about foot in mouth. Oh, sorry.
Yes. Plenty of moments too. Just knowing that, when you're, sometimes I would create these, in my head, it sounds great, right? Oh, we're going to do this program and we're going to, what did I want to make them do at some point? Oh man, we were doing a renovation project. We wanted to renovate our youth room. And so I wanted each of them to create like a little story about the experience with the renovations and all of that. I feel like I bit more than I could chew, because I had all these expectations in your head. Like you have this vision of how it's supposed to come out, and that's not what happened. And I learned that some of the kids were not really interested in that. So that's one of the moments where I had like this broad vision of how it was. So we did do the renovations, but it wasn't a lot of participation. There was just like a few of them that were interested. I think what I took away from that was that I should have been more attentive to where the others, not everybody could participate in everything. Some of the kids were only interested in going to IKEA and picking out the furniture. They didn't want to touch paint, and so I had to. And then I found myself with no workers. I was like, yeah, we're going to show up and we're going to paint the room. And two of them showed up. I'm like, guys, what happened? I don't even know how to paint myself. So it's just managing my expectations. I've had to learn that it's a continuous learning process, just being attentive and saying, not everything that's in my head can be executed the way I want it, because you're dealing with different personalities and they're young.
Like, isn't it amazing how God just equips us differently? Yeah, as you guys are talking about youth, I was just like, I've checked out this conversation because I don't have the bandwidth, but to each their own. Now, because I feel like
I was actually thinking
in a different class of their own.
I know you're not into youth, but I was thinking of how I started in youth as well.
They don't say, what am I saying? I'm into them. That sounds very.
I thought I wasn't until somebody just pushed me into it.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say that the way
I'm not into toddlers. I'm not into youth, so I'm trying to look for my demographic.
The way I got into youth work was literally like close to yours, which was, I wasn't interested. I didn't know that I was interested. I won't say I wasn't interested, but I didn't know that I was interested. But there was a chance to work on a youth summer camp. And I was like, why not? There was no calling, there was no angels, there was no flourish of trumpets, there was no harps, nothing. It was just like, why not? Okay. And then I did, and I was like, oh, this is fun, I want to do it again. And then I did it for 10 years.
Wow.
It was literally just like that.
Oh my gosh. And I was just, sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead. No, please. I'll use the floor to you. My guest, so go ahead.
I was only going to add, sorry, before you go on, I'm just going to add that it's also something I say to people, that when people sometimes think, they don't know what they're supposed to do, blah, blah, blah. Yes. I'm like, just do things.
Yeah.
Do things and notice how you feel when you do them. When you find something that makes you come alive, nobody's going to need to tell you.
Exactly.
But I don't sit around waiting for some, like, I don't know what, dramatic
voice in the skies to open.
Like, literally just do the things that pop up and see how you feel. And if you want to go back and do it again.
Very true. I could not agree more with that. And that's exactly where I was going to drive at with that. Like, the journey that I shared, a lot of my life story is just realizing your purpose, right? and who you are. And then I got to it. There wasn't any point in my journey where I had like this open skies, like, oh, Grace, now thou art go to this Texas, and then you're going to, even me becoming a speaker, I can trace back and see how the different opportunities, coincidences, I was pushed into something. I got involved in student government and this and that. And all of that was like, okay, you're here. I need to get a scholarship. That's a little book giveaway right there. I needed to get a scholarship. So I get involved into something, but then you don't realize that there is so much in you that if you just open yourself up, I think, Amida, you said if you make yourself available, right? Just do things. Then you get to realize your purpose becomes more clear as you make yourself available on that path. Because destiny will find you in motion. If you're just sitting, you never know.
A word. You just remind me of something someone said. I think it was Pastor Poju Mutolani. That most people stumble into success.
Yeah.
But you have to be moving to stumble. You don't stumble sitting down.
Wow, thanks for that reminder. And sincerely, I'll still go back to my comment. I think you can always tell people that are kind of passionate about this. And don't get me wrong, I think you should give yourself an opportunity to explore different things. I know I don't do well with youth. I don't do well with toddlers. That's like half of the human race already scrapped out. I'm still looking for my demographic. I haven't found them yet. But you guys, the way you're talking is like you have like an extra layer of grace that, I would just admire you guys from afar. But I think it's well needed. I was once a young person, and I know how difficult I was.
We're not actually, Grace. I'm gonna stop here and say, Tolani is lying. I know why she's lying. Ask her who she works with. She literally works with young people. Many of them teenagers.
Really?
That's her literal day job. It's also, but then not only is it her day job, I'm ready for you. Not only is it her day job, she also on the side. What's that thing you do? The thing you do with international students. What's that thing? What's the official name for it?
Grace.
Oh, what?
Is it
See, this is the laughter of somebody that has been caught with their hand in the pot.
Is it Discover America? Discover America.
I don't know what it's called. The thing you do where international students come into the country, you go pick them up, and then you sort of take them under your wing, and you sort of mentor them and sort of house them and host them.
These are young people. They're not youth. Youth is like, battalions.
Is their age? Does their age have sin in it? Is the only question I have for you.
You people, that's not me, okay?
Does their age have sin in it?
That's what it is.
But that day job, because the streets gotta eat and they pay my salary, so my hands are like literally tied. I have to work with them. But as far as the other one,
do they pay your salary for that? Isn't that volunteering? The hosting? Maybe
it's just self-torture. It's something to just expose myself to. See, I'm trying. I'm working towards that success.
Telling yourself that.
To move along. But you guys take so much joy talking about it. Maybe because I don't have that joy about
the prosecution rests its case.
Jeez, I came back with all those rusty receipts. Are you happy? Or dusty receipts? Are you happy with yourself? See, like Grace.
Oh man, hey, international students. That is. Hey, I wish I had my sister here that's gonna help me through the loops, but it's a lot that international students need, just assimilating into the culture. That's what sprouted my passion for being in student leadership when I was in college, was because I wanted to expose my fellow international students to the opportunities that had been given to me.
Yeah. Same here is why I do what I do. Even because when I was at UT Austin, if not for the people who were already, I call them Americans or international minded people bringing me in, and especially on holidays that we don't celebrate, like Thanksgiving, when everybody's like traveling and you're just stuck, at home or in your room, and they invite you over, you get to know more about their culture. So it wasn't a no-brainer thing to do that when I moved to Oklahoma. I still want to get involved with students, especially international students, because that's like my heart and soul right there. If it's to even, tell them about my experiences or just make them feel like they have a second home. Yeah, that's something I'm super passionate about, So maybe I'm in the youth ministry after all. I wasn't thinking of it that way. All right, well, Grace, this has been great having you, and my goodness, you're a born speaker. Maybe I won't say born speaker, but you've cultivated that art of just giving very good responses, and your poise, your passion with every topic we've asked you. Even though our questions to me, because I was texting Emily back and forth, I felt like our questions weren't quite challenging enough, but you made them look so good. Almost like we gave you lemons and you made golden cake out of it, right? So I want to say thank you. Thank you for being gracious. And I'll soon leave the studio, don't worry. I'll soon throw that work down. But thank you for your time and just sharing some of your passion. And before we go, I would like to just ask where people can find your book and even find you if they wanted to learn more about your work and your process.
Okay, great. And hey, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I've never been on a podcast before. So this was...
Really? Nobody has tapped into the Grace?
This was my first ever.
You need to stop.
I have no self-control. You have to yank this mic out of my hand.
I was nervous. I'm like, oh my goodness. I hope I don't go on a rabbit trail talking about so many different aspects of my life.
No,
but you've been such a gracious host, and both you and Ayomide. Thank you so much for the opportunity to just share.
You said she's been a gracious host, and I could see her eyes beginning to itch.
Don't just crawl out of my head and they just step away.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so much fun. This was definitely fun.
I'm glad.
So it's been really fun to have you, Grace, and thanks because I said it for one of your answers, but I feel like the questions we asked you are questions that you've clearly spent a lot of time thinking about, not just now, but I don't know, for years probably, and it shows, and that makes it such a joy to have. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you still talked about your book and where you can find it on.
Okay.
Or even your email or Instagram, whatever you want to drop.
Right.
This is your time to kind of promote your book a little bit.
Yeah, so I have a website. So a lot of the information, you can find it at gracemulenga.com. And from there, it will route you to the different Instagram, Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram at Grace M. Mulenga. Fun fact, I married a man with the same last name. So I'm Grace Mulenga now. That's why it's Grace M. Mulenga.
Wait. You guys have done the family tree. There's no relations anywhere.
We're not related.
Is your surname a common one in Zambia?
Like a Smith.
Is it like the equivalent of Smith or something like that?
It is. So it was just a coincidence. But I feel like
you don't have to change anything. Not even your birth certificate. My goodness.
I don't have to change anything. But I tell my friends, I said, you know what? God he's an architect of our lives, right? So he was like, she's gonna write a book, and by the time she's publishing this book, she would have just gotten married. So I don't want her to have to change the name on the book. So
congratulations. Yeah. And it seems like the wedding was even in Zambia, right?
The wedding was in Zambia, yes.
Anyways, so we're gonna link all of that in the show notes, your website, and the link to your book on Amazon. Grace, it's been lovely having you once again. Everyone, please don't forget to share this episode or put a comment on our Instagram page at the More Sibyl Podcast. And there's plenty more where this came from. So check out our website, www.mosibyl.com, for other episodes just like this or even different from this. Well, it's been fun having Grace on the show, and thank you all for tuning in today. And this has been Mo and
Ayomide. What?
And with Grace. See you guys next time. All right, Grace.
See y'all.
Mm-hmm.